Joshua.
Why?
It's bigger, longer. He can fight.
Joshua. I think Usyk's too small.
I think Anthony Joshua too big.
Anthony Joshua knock him out. He too big.
I gotta go with the size on this one. I gotta go with Anthony Joshua. I think he'll be a little too big, a little too strong.
Anthony Joshua too big.
Clearly, size matters, but so does technique, sometimes even more than size. And yet, while Usyk might be the more technically skilled fighter overall, in this case, I don't think that's going to save him. He might have fewer technical failings, but Joshua's strengths are pointed right at those openings, and that can make for an early night in heavyweight boxing. In this video, we're going to look at 3 technical mistakes that will make the size disparity even more dangerous, putting Usyk in the line of fire during exits and exchanges, where AJ can use his power, be the bigger man, and skin the cat. Probably with a highlight reel cross, or overhand, if I had to pick. And even if you're not a fan of either fighter, or this fight's now ancient history, this video is packed full of long guard tips and boxing best practices that everyone should know. So let's begin. First, let me just say that I really like Usyk. He's got a great amateur pedigree, he's surrounded himself with amazing trainers and training partners, and he does a lot of the things I like. In fact, he does a lot of the things I've already featured on this channel, including using the front step shuffle to cut angles, get offline, and load power shots, using the bump in to slide inside with his head offline, setting business hours with defensive traffic to draw and counter specific punches, triangle stepping right into quick lateral movement, pivoting out with the inside foot position as an active defense like we covered in our southpaw fighting video, manipulating the hand fight with Joe Calzaghe's give and take trick, staying safe with elbow flips and blocks like we discussed in our elbow blocking video, both from the L guard and off of punches, and much more besides. But as close to perfect as he may be, there are still some predictable patterns and technical errors that could get him in trouble against a big, powerful puncher who explodes at mid-range like AJ, both during the exchange and during the exit. Usyk is frequently open during exchanges because he punches with his head still and his chest up. This makes him very vulnerable in longer exchanges with AJ, who admittedly is no angel himself here, but at least he has size on his side. Chest down is an important cue for power punching, as it gets your weight and torso fully behind the punch and helps you sit down with the shot, clamping the weight down on the lead hip where it can be used right away, either to start another technique or to brace for impact. The same goes for changing head positions while you punch. Changing head positions not only facilitates the weight shift, putting more behind the shot than pure rotation, it also helps keep you safe. If you don't change your head position, you're a sitting duck and your opponent will find you, even if you punch their eyes off target. We see Usyk make these mistakes almost any time he throws the rear hand, his left, with power, and sometimes he won't move his head once during an entire combination. Interestingly enough, we're also seeing this habit shine through in training footage, and we can even see these mechanics being reinforced with GPP drills. Notice the chest up position that's being reinforced here again and again with this upright kneeder press, with this batting exercise, and even here when he's working the double end bag, you can see he's rising up every time he throws his rear hand, and his head position is not changing. Of course, you don't always have to change head position when you punch, but anytime you commit with big power, you probably should. Because Usyk tends not to do this, I think there's a good chance that AJ catches him during an exchange. Usyk uses a well-rounded long guard game, complete with soft and hard feints, measurements, pries, traps, defensive traffic, elbow flips, and manifold controls. He just gets lazy sometimes, taking strong positions but not staying active enough with his hands, which could get him in trouble against AJ. Here are a couple of the issues. Number 1, he's often guilty of extension without defensive traffic, or what I would call inconsistent lane management. You can tell Usyk feels good in the long guard position with his lead hand extended, but sometimes he holds it out rather than in the way. In other words, he doesn't block and control punch lanes with defensive traffic as diligently as he should. The best long guard fighters constantly bewilder opponents with dynamic defensive traffic, flowing through different positions with both hands, opening and closing different punch lanes, setting business hours for drop and lift parries, and mixing in opportunistic traps and controls. But Usyk often takes the long guard position without that kind of ambition, without that traffic and lane control, defaulting to a pawing lead hand, or sometimes even just holding the hand out and off to the side where it isn't blocking anything. This is a problem against a long guard fighter of AJ's caliber. If you're going to use the long guard or extended lead hand position and give up punches on that side, you need to get more in return. The pawing jab is great and it sets up a lot of Usyk's offense, but actively managing punch lanes with defensive traffic is critical for any long guard player. It also forces opponents to either stop punching or punch into your traffic, which is both easier to defend and also sets up a range of drop and lift parry options, elbow flips, and clinch fighting entries. Number 2, Usyk often gets caught working from long guard without control. You can't expect every control attempt to work, but you need a backup plan for when it doesn't. You cannot hesitate with the arm extended. You need to move the head, or attempt a different control right away, or change guards. At the very least, you need an elbow flip ready, because punches are coming. Unless you're asserting your control with pressure, shoves, lifts, and off balances, your opponent will have no problem looping punches over that extended arm, even blind. And that's exactly what I worry might happen against AJ if Usyk gets caught reaching without full control of his man. And this is actually a common beginner problem. Long guard sounds cool, but they haven't spent the time developing all the different tools that they need to make it work. The reality is the position will not save you. You need to be active and working all these different disruptions and using all the tools the long guard provides. Finally, number 3, Usyk puts too much pressure on a fallible rear hand defense. By underusing defensive traffic and head controls from long guard, Usyk gives up a lot of proactive defenses, putting a lot of pressure on reactive defense from his rear hand, which is far from perfect. While he does hold the hand high enough to defend, he doesn't use it very actively, looking to pick off or deflect punches. Instead, he keeps it glued on his cheek and kind of relies on static blocks, which leaves him open up the middle and forces him to absorb big impacts, which is what we warn against in our high guard video. Also, the more impact you absorb, the easier it is for your opponent to keep getting shots off, like a heavy bag combo. And this is where AJ's mid-range surges could start to take off. So to summarize this point, Usyk's inactive long guard, with its inconsistent defensive traffic and controls, forces him to over-rely on a fallible rear hand for reactive defense, which usually means a last-second block at best. That means he's eating a lot of impact, and you don't want to feel the impact of AJ's right hands. Some of Usyk's disengagements are better than others, and one exit in particular is downright dangerous. It could get the cat in trouble against AJ, should he choose to press 4, 5, or 6 punches deep into exchanges. So there are multiple things going wrong here, and this exit actually serves as a good review of most of the problems we've discussed here already in different contexts. So number 1, we see a lazy long guard, or an offline lead hand that's not being as consistent with controls and traffic as it should be. When he's using this exit, Usyk forgoes defensive traffic and lane control. His lead hand is simply not active enough. It needs to be either a disruption, trapping and controlling and creating traffic, or an obstruction, blocking punch lanes or covering target areas. But it's doing neither. Again, he's kind of over-relying on that long guard hand without having any real control established. Sometimes he even tucks the lead hand up against his belly where it's completely out of play. Number 2, we see that static, reactive rear hand defense failing him again. It's really all he has in play defensively here, with his lead arm in the position it's in, except for a predictable pull, which kind of plays into my next point, which is, this is very predictable. This exit is shockingly consistent. It's practically his default. I suspect that he might fall back into this habit in the heat of an exchange, and if AJ can press him, Usyk is in trouble. His long guard is wide open, with nothing to deter AJ's cross or overhand, and only a fallible, reactive rear hand defense to take care of it. Even if he blocks it, the impact could leave him shook, or at least leave AJ in position to follow up with one of his signature multi-punch mid-range assaults. If pressed while taking this posture and position, Usyk often pulls, which could expose his body even more and set up something bigger over the top. So that's it for now. Like I said, this is a tough fight to call. Usyk has the tools, but he has to fight a perfect fight against a much bigger man who's hunting for the very kinds of exchanges that could get Usyk in trouble. I wouldn't bet on it, but I'm not your mom, so do whatever you want, especially if you want to like and comment and subscribe if you haven't done that already. All those things really help us out. But either way, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy training.